Good afternoon and welcome to the Lincoln Depot Museum. We're here today for a very special occasion, one that we put off for a while, but we felt we needed to move forward with a beautiful outdoor ceremony today to dedicate 2 lilac bushes that have been given to us as a really nice gesture by the For Better Westchester and New York State Association, Inc. Welcome you all here on behalf of the Lincoln Depot Museum Board. I'm John Testa, the president of the board. We're also here with Paul Martin, who's the director, and Brian Kaplan also is here to help thank this association and welcome you here. And you might ask, why would this association pick lilacs to donate to the museum here? Well, those who know, lilacs are a very important spring plant. They bloom, and they bloom in a very beautiful way. As Walt Whitman, the poet, who was an admirer of Lincoln, thought in one of his poems, the poem is technically called "When Lilacs Last and the Dooryard Blooms." Now having these lilacs here to bloom every spring from now on will remind us of not only Abraham Lincoln and what he did for us in our country and the sacrifices he made for us, but also Walt Whitman and really the kindred spirit that they claimed that they had together, even though they never met in person. They would nod their heads to each other as Lincoln would go by in his carriage and Whitman would be walking on the streets of Washington. They would nod to each other, but they never met in person. So we're very happy to have this organization here of M.H. Fryburg and Stefan Lonce, who took it upon themselves to approach us and really have taken a liking to the museum and are big history buffs in their own right, and they wanted to make sure that they donated and contributed to our museum, and we're very thankful for them for that. So I'm going to now introduce M.H. Fryburg to say a few words on behalf of his organization.
Today, October 24th, 2020, we dedicate 2 lilac shrubs donated by the For Better Westchester and New York State Association, which we have planted here at the Lincoln Depot Museum. Lilacs are forever associated with Abraham Lincoln because Walt Whitman wrote a poem, "When Lilacs Last and the Dooryard Bloomed," celebrating Lincoln after he was assassinated. We dedicate these lilacs as a sign of hope in a dark and dangerous time. The COVID-19 coronavirus crisis ranks with the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and with the Great Depression and World War II as one of the greatest crises Americans have faced since the idea of the United States of America was first promulgated on July 4th, 1776. By dedicating these lilacs today, we celebrate and commemorate Abraham Lincoln and his devotion to democracy and the rule of law. In dedicating these lilacs today, let us resolve to honor Abraham Lincoln not just horticulturally, but politically, by heeding his admonition that the rule of law and the will of the American people expressed in presidential elections be respected by everyone, so that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall continue to be not just an ideal, but a reality in the United States of America.
Thank you, MH. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody who's here. I'd like to also welcome members of the Lincoln Society in Peekskill for joining us this afternoon and helping us celebrate this great day. Walt Whitman wrote this poem, and I believe it was published around 1881. And Walt Whitman actually did see some experience during the Civil War. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe he was in the medical corps, and he worked in various hospitals behind the front lines, and certainly was a witness to all of the devastation that the war had wreaked upon our nation. And while When Lilacs Last and the Dooryard Bloomed is an ode to President Abraham Lincoln, there are scholars who believe it's also an ode not just to Abraham Lincoln, but to the sons of our nation who sacrificed their lives for the savior of the nation, or the saving of that nation, and the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who died trying to preserve the Union. So there are allusions to that in the stanzas of the poem as well. The poem, I believe, has about 20 verses. We're not going to read them all to you. We just chose a few select verses that we felt are appropriate, and I'm going to read them to you now. When lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed, and the great star early drooped in the western sky in the night, I mourned, and yet shall mourn with ever-returning spring. O ever-returning spring, Trinity sure to me you bring, lilac blooming perennial, and drooping star in the west, and thought of him I love. O powerful, western, fallen star, O shades of night, O moody, tearful night, O great star disappeared, O the black murk that hides the star, O cruel hands that hold me powerless, O helpless soul of me, O harsh surrounding cloud that will not free my soul. In the dooryard fronting an old farmhouse, near the whitewashed palings, stands the lilac bush, tall growing, with heart-shaped leaves of rich green, with many a pointed blossom, rising, delicate, with the perfume strong I love, with every leaf a miracle. And from this bush in the dooryard, with delicate colored blossoms and heart-shaped leaves of rich green, a sprig with its flower I break. Coffin that passes through lanes and streets, through day and night, with dark cloud darkening the land, with the pomp of the in-looped flags, with the cities draped in black, with the show of the states themselves, as of crape-veiled women standing, with processions long and winding, and the flambeaux of the night, with the countless torches lit, with the silent sea of faces and the unbared heads, with the waiting depot, the arriving coffin, and the somber faces, with dirges through the night, with the thousand voices rising strong and solemn, with all the mournful voices in the dirges poured around the coffin, with dim-lit churches and the shuddering organs, where amid these you journey, with the tolling bells' perpetual clang. Here, coffin that slowly passes, I give you my sprig of lilac. I saw askant the armies, and I saw, as in noiseless dreams, hundreds of battle flags, borne through the smoke of the battle, and pierced with missiles I saw them, and carried hither and yon through the smoke, and torn and bloody, and at last but a few shreds left on the staffs, and all in silence, and the staffs all splintered and broken. I saw battle corpses, myriads of them, and the white skeletons of young men. I saw them. I saw the debris, and the debris of all the dead soldiers of war. But I saw they were not as was thought. They themselves were fully at rest. They suffered not. The living remained and suffered. The mother suffered, and the wife and the child and the musing comrades suffered, and the armies that remain suffered. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good job, Paul. After hearing those stanzas, it's important to point out that the site here in 1861 is where President-elect Lincoln stopped to give a speech to the community. but it's also the location that his funeral train stopped, the only place in Westchester where it stopped, and the community mourned his passing. And that one stanza that Paul read was perfect for that, as well as every soldier who served during the Civil War from this area, who perished and was brought home, was sent home via train, was brought to this location to be picked up by their families and taken to wherever they were going to bury them, or whatever cemetery they were destined for. So it's a very important location. It's very important to have these lilacs here, so when people come every spring, we'll see them bloom and we'll think of all these things, and it's very appropriate. So please join us. We're going to put some mulch around the newly planted lilacs. Please help us do that, and that'll be the end of our ceremony. So thank you.